late, folks. We'll call this regular meeting of the County Commissioners to order. Please join us with the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll begin with the minutes of our previous meeting. Is there
I'll second.
okay. That includes the Jane, you want this to include the September 20th public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes. Department reports. Who wants to be first today? I've expected some other people here. Area Plan Commission Director Bill McDaniel is here. Bill, do you have anything?
Well, actually, I'm here because of the Hoosier Solar.
Okay.
Well, you can always move them up forward on the agenda in that case.
Okay. County Surveyor Bill Mackey, do you have anything?
Nothing to sign or anything, I just want to kind of give you an update on Bridge 90. They've got the deck poured a week ago, Thursday. They've done the approaches are poured. They were supposed to check the strength so they can get up and start doing the bridge railings. And they've also been working on the asphalt. Come to find out, NDOT approved it and I approved it. I think, remember years ago that bridge used to go up and like that? When Mr. Gobin was the surveyor, he put that ramp in there of solid asphalt. So instead of the original design had tearing out all of the road and rebuilding it back from scratch, we don't think we're going to do that. We're just going to mill it down and put all the new surface and everything, base and everything on top of that. And if everything goes well, it looks like it's going to save us a little over $90,000 in construction costs, which counties will be 20% of that. And how that'll work, any savings, we won't get it back until after 6 or 7 years when the final audits are done, because you know when it's all final audit, they figure out we paid $15,000, $20,000 more than what we should have. Then they'll send us a check. Since I've been surveyor, I've got 3 or 4 checks, some from the early 2000 bridges that that we overpaid on, just a few, maybe $1,500, $1,200, stuff like that. But it might be 6 or 7 years down the road when the final audit's done. But this going to save about $100 grand in time too. So that was a pleasant surprise. So,
Okay. Yes, good.
yeah, so those bridge railings, like I said, I'm sure I haven't talked to the inspector, but I'm sure that the approaches are test strong enough to get up on there and start those. And once that's done in the road, they'll be ready to. So I haven't heard a final completion date yet. I'm assuming they're still on time for November 15th. And they've been working. I've been talking to the inspector, and I know NDOT or whatever, we could actually charge for overage, which is not a lot each day, but he has said that they've been working 6 days a week. They've put forward effort to get this done this summer, being delayed because of utilities and stuff, and all that fine will go to NDOT's general fund. We don't see any of it anyway. Yeah. So it goes to them. But they've made a good effort to get this done, even if they have to go over a few days. I don't think that should be an issue on our part, because they've been working 6 days a week, putting in a lot of time this summer, trying to make sure they get this done. So hopefully before long we'll be able to do it.
Yeah, everybody hopes the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So,
Thanks,
right at the end of the phone.
Okay. Highway Department, Jay Havlin, do you have anything for us today?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I've got 2 people coming in to talk to Haley Monday. For the replacements for the ones that were short.
Okay. You've been advertising to fill 2.
Yeah, equipment operator and truck driver.
An equipment operator and a truck driver. And you've interviewed and decided on the 2 you want.
Yes.
Okay, should we count these as 144 requests?
Well, I figured I'd come the first of the month and do them, so that way I can go to council that night and get finished up on them.
Okay,
But
well,
you can count them.
do you want us to give approval today, or?
That's up to you. If you want to give approval today, that's fine. I'll just have to remember to go first of the month to the council.
What do you want to do?
Might as well do it and get it taken care of.
Okay,
I'll move to approve Mr. Baker and Mr. Miller for county highway.
I'll second that.
okay, we have a motion by Dale, second by Tracy to approve the hire of Darren Miller and Ronnie Baker to fill two empty positions at the county highway department. All in favor signify by saying aye. 3 ayes, James. You want these back?
No, I've got the original
Okay,
applications down there. That's just the front page off of them.
all right, and you're gonna have them start the first week of November?
Yes. Well, no, they'll actually start next week.
Okay, all right,
Because they had to give 2 weeks notice where they was at, and their 2 weeks are up first next week, so that they'll be in first. And I've got an appointment with them with Haley to get everything signed up and ready and all that stuff. Plus
okay.
they had to be drug tested, so they get all that done the first week.
Okay, do you have anything else?
Well, I I didn't get a chance to talk to Tracy, but our brush cutter is down. The boom arm it broke almost completely in half. And what they're telling me down at Zimmer down there in Brookville, it's an Alamo mower and arm system, and it'll be almost $8,000 to replace it. But they said it'd be 68 weeks before we would get one. That's over a year. So I'm gonna go to the process, see what I can find to either rent or replace it or what. But we can't afford not to go out and cut brush, because all the roads need it. They all need trimmed. And this is about the 4th or 5th time this year that thing's been down.
Well, as important as brush cutting is, we might also take a good hard look at some new equipment down the road.
Yeah.
Obviously, this equipment that we have is just not heavy duty enough, big enough to,
Well, this is actually a tractor with a boom arm on it. And I can show you what, I'm gonna have them come up and do a demonstration on one of these, and then look for something else. But it's built strictly for brush cutting and alongside the roads.
that's certainly more of a machine than we have now. Anything else?
Not that I can think of right offhand.
Can we spray some of this with brush spray?
I don't know if it'd do any good this time of year or not.
Well, I mean, in the spring or something.
Yeah, in spring you can, yeah. You just have to be
Spray some of this
careful where you
back.
spray at, so you don't get nobody's field.
Right.
I will call them this week and have them come up and do a demonstration with it, because it's got a number on there to call.
Yeah, if you can get a demo, I'd like to see that.
I'll let all 3 of you know when they're gonna come up and do it.
We'll have them come out by my road and do their demonstration.
I think everybody's got a little bit on the road they could do. Seems like it's really growing out there.
Have you heard any more from that dealership about the trucks that they were going to get in?
He hadn't called me back. I need to call him back this week, because I was hoping he'd come up with something. Because we got a couple that need to be put aside and not run, but we're gonna have to run through winter. We'll run through winter. The one's the oldest one's a 99. It needs a little work, but it's still usable. You have to use it. It's all right to keep one like that for a spare in case one goes down. Because I got one down it's up in Greensville. the Freightliners that we bought in 2012 are starting to cause us problems. First one went down and the computer and the transmission went out and they had to replace it. I think it was $2,200, which is not bad for a computer when you put it in a piece of equipment. But the second one did the same thing. So I hope the three small ones don't do the same thing. But just waiting and seeing.
Right. Well, we're probably no better off than anybody else is in that respect.
Especially trying to get equipment worked on.
Yeah.
But I told you we need to take and have the paver looked at, because it's having a problem. And them people have never got back with us yet on whether they want us to bring it to them or they want to come down and look at it.
Well, now that the paving season has come to a close.
Now's the time to fix it.
Now's the time to fix that.
Yeah. If we have to haul it to them, we'll haul it to them.
Okay.
And that's all I have. That's enough, isn't it?
That's enough. Well, you got anything for Jay?
Were you gonna see if you could get a price on a grinder or something for the?
Yeah, I was,
just to compare.
like I said, we found the one, but I want to try to find one like what Brookfield's using on theirs, because they said it works great. But I got to go down there and get the name from them again. I forgot what the name was. I had it wrote down. I don't know what I did with it, but I'll find it. But we'll find something out, one way or the other.
Okay, thanks, Jay. I think that's it for the department heads that are here. County Attorney, do you have anything for us today?
No, I do not.
Okay, that's always a good thing. Anyone have anything, any mail to share? Okay, on the new business, Matthew Ellsbury is here from Butler, Fairman and Seifert for the closeout of our community crossings projects this year. Matthew, good to see you.
Good to see you. Take one, pass it down. So this is the final closeout packet for the 2022 CCMG project for Fayette County this year. The final amount that we had was $1,208,954.20. That's the first page of your document. It shows all of the quantities that we had. The certificate of substantial completion is the next document in there. It shows the substantial completion date that they had, which was September 22nd of 2022. So that's when their one-year warranty period will start. There was no retainage held on this contract. We had final acceptance and accepted the product, so we did not hold any retainage on the pay estimate. The final document is the final change order for this project. You can see the original contract amount was $1,550,103.50. We had that first change order to change it from 2 lifts to just 1 lift, so that took us to $1,302,000, and the final contract amount was $93,000 less than that. So we did come in under budget for this project.
That's good.
Yeah, and most of that was due to Coltrane Hill Road. We planned for a 20-foot width, and there are some spots of that it got pretty skinny, so that's why we ran under on tonnage on that project.
So we wound up using $1,208,954.
Correct.
Okay. Which was really more in line with what we wanted to do in the beginning.
Yes. Yep. And I think Milestone did a pretty good job. I think the road's riding pretty nice. We had one issue out there on Coltrane Hill Road where they had quite a bit of a bump, and they came back and fixed that last week. So they fixed it good enough for us. Me and Jay went and drove it, so we're satisfied with what they did.
I've driven it myself, and it's a lot better than it used to be. Now, we did discuss earlier in the year about striping that new pavement, and did you tell me Milestone would provide a estimate, a quote for striping?
They said they would provide an estimate to stripe it with 2 lines, but they would not be interested in striping it, but they would give you a quote to kind of give you a guideline of what it would cost if you guys decided to do it on your own. They haven't provided that to me yet, but I can follow back up with them and get a
Okay.
quote on that.
Well, I think, or do we want to be interested in that or not?
I think so.
I think we're interested in that, Matthew.
Okay.
So,
I'll follow back up with them, make sure I get it.
okay. Okay, you need,
I will need 1 signed copy for my records.
okay. This one here?
All 3 of them. So there's a spot on the pay estimate spot, and then for the substantial completion document as well as the change order.
Okay. Okay, we'll need a, whenever you're ready, we'll need a motion to, how do you want to word this, Matthew? Just accept the final closure agreement? Okay. We'll need a motion to accept the final closure agreement, the 2022 street resurfacing project for Fayette County Community Crossings Program.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Motion by Dale, second by Tracy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes, Jane.
Sorry. Never mind.
So moved.
I think I put words in his mouth and he put words in my mouth, I think. So this, just any of these copies here, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. They're all signed by the contractor as well as myself, so whichever one. I've got another copy here. If you guys want to keep your copy, we can sign this one instead.
Okay, well, we got, we'll take care of this right now. This first one has room for multiple signatures. The certificate of substantial completion
Just has 1 signature
only
spot.
has room for 1 signature. And the
Change order
last,
number 2.
the last page has room for multiple signatures.
There's the,
If I email you, you reply and can you copy that?
Mhm.
Jane, do you also need a signed copy?
Want you to help give me one?
I'll scan it.
Okay.
Do you need my email address?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else you need from us on community crossings this year?
I do not believe so, unless you have any other questions about it.
Anybody got anything for Matthew? Well, thank you very much for helping out this year on this.
Yeah, it went pretty well, pretty pleased, and like I said, there's a 1-year warranty period on it, so if we notice any issues, you can just give me a call and we'll work with Milestone to get it fixed.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks a lot. Okay. Mr. Mason Gordon is here with Hoosier Solar.
Okay. What we have here, it's for the committee for the solar energy. And we have is Mason Gordon representing Hoosier Solar, and then we also have John McCain, the Rush County Economic Development Director. He's also here to speak about the the committee itself, how it's operating in Rush County.
Yeah, so good to see you all again. Mason Gordon with Hoosier Solar. I was here and spoke to you guys back in June. That felt like it was like 2 months ago, but apparently it was a little bit more than that. But at that time you guys were still considering a solar ordinance, so congratulations on getting that passed. Wanted to share a couple of brief updates with you that at that point we did not have any Fayette County. So as a reminder, we're looking at a large-scale utility scale solar project in Rush and Fayette County. I think about 70% of that project's assets will be in Rush County, but there is a portion in Fayette County as well. At that point, we did not have any Fayette County landowners that had signed lease options, and now we do. So we do have a couple of Fayette County landowners that have officially signed on to the project. Since June, we've been going through many iterations of engineering plans, and now we've reached the point where we feel pretty comfortable based on setback requirements and wetlands and elevations and such, that we've got some site plans that we can start to bring forward to Rush County and to Fayette County and gain approval for those projects. We understand that you all haven't been through a solar project before. Rush County has, and we're in a pretty similar situation with you all. That first project in Rush County was a majority in Henry County, small portion in Rush County, and so this one's kind of the exact opposite, where now Rush County's got a bulk of the project. But with that being said, we wanted to come forward to Bill and say that we are getting to the point where here in the next couple of months we feel like we can come forward and get those permitting and zoning approvals, and just want to make sure that we're getting you all starting to think about how you want to approach approving that project. Rush County went with a kind of a committee approach, where they got some folks together that were represented the county commissioners and county council to kind of be the group that takes the first pass at those approvals and agreements and so on. And so we wanted to invite John over to kind of give you a little background about how Rush County approached the process, and ultimately it's your guys' decision on how you as Fayette County commissioners want to approach that process in Fayette County as well. So I'll invite John McCain up to share a little bit about Rush County's process, and we'll be sure to answer any questions you guys got.
Thanks, Mason. Pass those around. There's my business card. If you have questions, call me. My cell phone's on there. I take phone calls day or night. So I think Rush County did a pretty good job as we worked through the solar. We had gone through wind and wasn't very pretty, and so we wanted to make a very concerted effort that we put a lot of thought into it, make sure that what we do is thoughtful to the taxpayers, the landowners, and the community as a whole. So early on, the project up there, as Mason described, was probably very similar. 70% in Henry County, 30% in Rush County. The relationship started with the agent from the solar company reaching out to my office. And from there, first thing I did was bring in Commissioner Paul Wilkinson for two reasons. One, Paul sat on my board. I knew Paul well. And two, he probably was, his property from here to maybe the station over there from the project itself. So he would have had the most vested interest in it if he supported or if he didn't, because it would potentially have some ramifications on some of his neighbors. So as I chatted with Paul, when we actually chatted about how do we get the best knowledge we can, you guys as the executive accounting, you need to be as knowledgeable about as anybody. You've got a capable attorney, and I hate to say that with him right there where you can hear me say it, but you have a capable attorney who sat through the process in Rushville on the area plan side. Somewhere along the way, you may, in Rush County, we reached out to Rick Hall. Rick is with Barnes and Thornburg, and has probably done most of the alternative
energy projects in the state has his fingerprints on somewhere along the way. We do a lot of work with H.J. Oh my Lord, I'm very old. It used to be H.J. Umball, now is Baker Tilly, because you need someone who will tell you this is what's in your best interest as you move the project forward. And so, as Paul and I were talking, we decided we needed those. We needed our legal, we needed our financial consultants on the team. And then the next step was to add 3 members of the county council and a county commissioner. And so, didn't have enough to create a quorum. They were literally just fact finders. They listened to the company, they listened to the consultants, and they would come back to their respective boards and make a recommendation that here's where we think we did, here we think we're going to do a good job for the taxpayers, for the property owners, and for the community as a whole. So nothing they did was binding. They were advisors, if you will. As I said, having sat through wind, which was maybe the worst experience of my life, and then sitting through this, they were a great deal. They were completely different. For us, our community was very fortunate. We had people that showed up at the area plan meeting, but mostly just asked questions. They had concerns, and I don't think we truly had a single remonstrator against the project. That project will be finalizing hopefully by the end of this year, and so they'll get their first tax bill in 24. What our community chose to do was provide Rush County's deep in property tax caps. I'm not sure how your county lies with that, but we would have not received the benefit of the investment in our community if it weren't the fact that we chose to give them tax abatement, and in turn they will pay us an economic development fee over the next 20 years. That fee will add up to about $7 million over those 20 years. At the same time, property that is assessed as farm ground will go up to a utility rate, so $12.80 an acre, I think is what farm ground is, up to I think $13,000 to $15,000. It recently changed, so I'm not on top of that. So the taxpayers saw a benefit that way, but at the same time, the county reaped the benefit of the economic development fee. Those are the things that were negotiated through our solar committee. Mason's right. You guys can choose to do it however you would like to. I'm just, they asked if I come over and share how we function. Commissioner German Russell told me to make sure I met Dale because I hired his brother as a firefighter 30 years ago in Rushville. And I didn't realize he was on the Board of Commissioners. So, you obviously know our commissioners. I encourage you to reach out and chat with them too. I think they'll tell you is they did things that I would candidly say they didn't want to do. But they realized the benefits that were going to come to their budget and to the community. They did it. They did it extraordinarily well, and very proud of them. And I've said that several times. That very proud of the way they handled that, because I knew it wasn't. When you talk about TIF and property taxes or tax abatement, those things sometimes made them cringe a little bit. And so they got beyond that, did what's best for the community, and that's how it worked. So for what it's worth, I'll answer any questions you've got. And if I don't know the answer, I'll make sure I get you the right one.
John?
Yes, sir.
Okay, could you explain to them a little bit more that you did to me about the other agreements that are involved that really
Sure.
need the role of commissioners, such as the roads agreements, anything along those lines?
Yeah, there are 3 agreements I think that are extraordinarily important for you. You need a road use agreement, which means that you're covering everything that if they're coming out with heavy equipment or something and damaging the new pavement on Coltrane Road, that they're going to fix that to as good or better shape than what it is. In many cases, unlike wind, you're not dealing with the heavy equipment, so the likelihood is not as strong. But that's important. You want a land use agreement that, as you're dealing with tiles and drains, which are very important to you guys, that they're going to repair those to as good or better standards than what they started. To me, I would negotiate those before you negotiate the economic development agreement, because if you give them the agreement, you give them the tax abatement, if that's the direction you choose to go, you lose your leverage. At that point, you want, and again, I've known him since he was a kid, and I like him. He's a great asset to the company. But I will tell you the same thing I told him, that I would never advise our commissioners to agree to anything until they have these agreements put in place. And a decommissioning agreement is very important. I'm not sure how, Rushville, I think our process is kind of wonky, that the area plan approves the decommissioning agreement, but then the commissioners approve it too. I don't know why two boards are doing that, but that's neither here nor there.
That has to do with their attorney thinks that only the commissioners can enter into agreements.
No.
Which of course I would agree with, unless they give another board the authority to enter into an agreement.
All right, so I don't know what your standards are here. I'm just saying what we do in Rushville, that's what we did.
Yes.
How did you hear today? And again, it worked out fine. It was just trying to make sure the sequencing was all right. But when Hoosier Solar, and they build their solar arrays and they're done. They're done. Unless they want to come back and do something else. But in that case, you guys are still here. You have to deal with the neighbors. You have to deal with the people who drive the roads. We were very, and I will tell you, the relationships are very important. I knew that if I called Light Source BP, was the project we are finishing up this year. I knew those characters from the company, and so if I picked up the phone, because I heard one case, I heard problems that really weren't the truth, but I heard it. So to be able to know those people and to reach out to them and say, hey, I don't want what you're doing here to hurt any other project. I don't want them to hurt Hoosier Solar because they did a lousy job. So knowing those people that cast the characters with Hoosier Solar or whoever the next group may choose to be is extraordinarily important, because you want to be able, just as I gave you my card, you need to be able to reach out to them and get those confidences that they're doing you a good job, because you're the ones who live here, and you're the ones who have to, when you go to the grocery store, take 30 minutes because somebody's not happy about mud on the road or whatever it might happen to be. So, for your APC director is exactly right. You want to make sure those agreements are in place, and do them before you start sending out green cards to affected property owners. You want to, that way you know all the facts and you have everything prepared, so you guys are in the best situation to answer those questions, because there's nothing worse somebody shows up and asks you 10 questions you don't know the answers to. By the time you get the agreements passed and your local and other consultants give you all the knowledge that you need to know, it puts you in a better place to answer those questions. Now, I talk about consultants, by the way. We had Rick Hall from Barnes and Thornburg and Jason Semler from Baker Tilly. You make sure that you don't pay those bills. He pays those bills. They're working for you, but they're going to pay for it, because you should be able to get the information you need, and it shouldn't cost the taxpayers. So, does that help?
That was going to be what I was going to ask. I was waiting for you to
Okay.
I figured you'd get to that point, but that was going to be one thing I really wanted to wait it out.
Yeah, they're doing something differently than what Light Source BP did. Light Source said, who do you want to do it? We told them, and they did. As it worked out, they were working for already doing work for Light Source. When I say they, Baker Tilly. And for me, there was no conflict because I know after that project, Jason Semler's still going to advise me on TIF and he does work for the county and the city, and he's not going to cut me short for the sake of that one contract. So I didn't have a problem with that. In this case, Taft is doing a lot of their financial side, and I said, that's great. When you get your numbers ready, let me know so I can get them to my guy, and he can analyze that. And it's the old Ronald Reagan trust but verify. I believe the information they're telling me is correct, but I want to make sure that my consultants, the people who are advising me, tell me that is correct. So, and then we just send them a bill. What else?
Anyone have any questions for John?
When you made your road agreements and the tile repair agreements, did you have any issues getting those agreements through?
No, not really. I think if this gentleman is your highway superintendent, I don't know if that's true or not, I'm in an assumption here, but he needs to have a very good understanding of the road use agreement especially. One of the first meetings we had, met with our county attorney, Hoosier Solar, and Jerry Sitten. And I don't know if there's somebody else in that meeting.
Surveyor.
Oh, the county surveyor. And we talked about that. And in this case, because we'd already gone through it once, I sent every one of those documents to these guys and said, boys, here's the deal. We've gone through this. This is what we feel comfortable with. If you want to nuance any of these, that's great. But if you're asking for a substantial change, that might create some heartburn here. I will offer to you that I'll get to Jeff every one of those documents.
I already have them.
You already have them? That,
I'm already familiar with
all
them.
right, so, but yeah, I'll share their public records, I'll share those, so you don't have to start from scratch with them. It's work smart instead of hard, and there's give and take, especially the first time around. Probably be less this time around because we've got a roadmap of how we chose to do it. But yeah, there's it'll have to be. I know roughly the area where they're looking at over here, but I don't know specifically what roads might be impacted. But you want to go out and televise them and make sure you got a copy of what the roads look like before the project started, and that way if you want to compare at the end, you know, well, that's a problem. It wasn't here when you started the project. So.
Well, John, if I'm hearing you right,
Yes, sir.
there seems to be, well, it sounds like your experience with using a solar committee was advantageous to everyone involved.
I think so, because it allowed for, I think, real negotiations. For example, one thing that we did and will do again is for the economic development agreement. In essence, what we did was we're going to forgive you paying taxes for 20 years. That's aggressive. Never done that in Rushville or Rush County. But my consultant said, here is what you can anticipate what those taxes are going to be. So you created an agreement that says I'm going to pay you that amount of money. So although it's a tax abatement, they're still paying full rack for what it's worth. But we did put an escalator in there of 6%. So until it maxed out on the property tax caps. So that 6% guaranteed us that we were being, again, thoughtful to the taxpayers. And as I had mentioned, Rick Hull's fingerprints were probably all over most of the deals in the state. He said that's probably the greatest escalator that I've seen. So by hearing that, I felt comfortable that we had done the best we could.
So did the Rush County Commissioners give your committee the negotiating authority?
They did, knowing full well that whatever's negotiated is not binding, but allowed a select group of people to do a deep dive into it, the laws, the facts, the figures. And I'll be honest, as far as the group goes with the agreements, those were handled between the attorneys. We didn't, I mean, they came back and said, here's what we agree with, do you think that's fair? And the area plan director, the highway superintendent says, I don't like that, we need to work on that. And that was really done by a separate committee. But as far as the details financially, things like that, those were negotiated locally. We looked at different scenarios of what we would, here's what we would going to push for, here's what the base would be, and here's where we felt we'd settle. And we take those recommendations back to the full bodies.
Seems like very often that special committees of that nature are able to devote more time and effort, and in some cases expertise,
Sure.
to these various details that will get skipped over in public meetings and official functions, you know. So I can see how that was useful.
Unless they're paying you hourly as a commissioner, I would guess,
Yeah.
those hourly rates would add up, because to have that extra time that the committee put in would be lengthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't get paid by the hour.
Oh, I didn't figure you did, sir.
So, now, Mason, you're, the project you guys are working on over in Rush County now, you say now that is now going to include 2 property owners in Fayette County?
A few, I don't know that it's exactly 2. There are a small number of landowners in Fayette County as well, yeah.
Okay. So is,
How many acres in Fayette County?
I can get an exact acreage total for you, but a couple hundred acres. And we're not talking about thousands by any means, so a couple hundred, yep. And our current plan would be to connect to the electrical grid in Fayette County as well. So a portion of that 30% of the assets will be in the substation to connect it to the electrical grid.
so there's going to be a substation on the Fayette County side of the line?
That would be the current proposal. Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Can you give us any idea how many acres in Rush County this project is going to include?
We will be around that 2,000 acre mark total. So we're looking at probably like 1,700 acres in total in Rush County, and then a couple hundred acres in Fayette County.
Okay.
And on
And
the
again,
other
I
side-
can give you some more detailed acreage numbers, yeah.
And having gone through that, I also would tell you that having the substation doesn't take up a lot of land, and it's high dollars, so that's in your best interest financially in the project.
And a little bit more background, there's a couple of smaller phases in Rush County as well, so we've been kind of in more express talks with Rush County, because those can happen a bit quicker because they're smaller. But the portion that will hug the Rush and Fayette County line is a bit larger and takes longer to get the approvals from the grid operators. So we've got some time before we really need to get that project rolling. So I'm saying, you don't feel rushed that we've got to, get all this done in a matter of weeks. We have a bit more time, because like I said, there's a couple of quicker phases that'll happen in Rush County first. Yeah. Got something going.
Yeah, maybe could just reiterate these, for example, the time frame. Say once it would be approved, once the project would be approved, will be the time frame then beginning construction and then finally being fully online. And I tell people it takes a while.
Yeah, and so maybe I'll just use the light source, because I've been studying light source as kind of a framework as to how the Hoosier Solar project can happen in Rush County. They received kind of an initial BZA special exception approval in December of 20. All of the agreements were passed in October of 21, and now we're looking at completion of kind of end of year 2022. So that was kind of a 2-year process from getting the ball rolling to officially coming online. So relatively similar size projects, you're probably looking at the same time horizon there. So it definitely does not happen overnight, and those negotiation periods did take several months to go back and forth. And like John said, we do have a good framework of those light source BP documents to start with, but again, it will take some time to get sorted through that.
And some of the things, was to no one's fault except the engineers, that, you know, I'll ask him, when are we ready to pull the trigger on these things? And he said, well, they're still engineering, so it could affect different roads, and so that is why, you know, having all of the information you can prior to is really important. Now, Jeff, if my memory served me correctly, the BZA gave the permit approval contingent upon the decommission. And the decommission happened, it was agreed to literally the night before the next, and it's something, if you don't do it, I encourage you to do it. You may have to add a couple chairs, but to have joint meetings of the council and commissioners together. So when you have these hearings, you get to all hear the same thing at the same time. And if you miss in one meeting something, then, well, they didn't tell me that, so you have to go back. So having joint meetings is, we found very, very helpful, so that you get all the same information at the same time. So, so as I said, BGA gave their special exception. Months later, they approved the decommissioning. The next day, the commissioners and the council met together because literally, like, in the same meeting, we approved the land use agreement, road use agreement, economic development agreement, then went to the county council in the same room. They approved the tax abatement, and it was over at that point. But we do it a bunch in Rushville. That we'll have 2 or 3 boards in the same room, and it's really effective. I encourage it.
You've been dealing with this on the APC too, haven't you?
A little bit, yeah. So, how long, if we put this committee together, how long do we have from, let's say, today till when this committee has to have everything lined up, ready to go back to the commissioners, to the APC, and the county council, to get all the approval, all the signatures, ready to deal with, let's say, your company?
There is no set date. It's fluid, because again, the worst thing that happen is you rush through it because you have to meet a deadline and then you miss something. So to have the flexibility that, you know, we're going to meet until we feel comfortable that we're ready to take it to both boards, and at that point, it's not saying that there couldn't have been a majority of the people who said, no, we're against that. We don't agree with your recommendation. But as it turned out in our case, they unanimous on both sides. So don't think you have to do anything right away. You might be, I think again with your highway superintendent who mentioned that, you know, costs keep going up, so there may be a benefit to getting things going because of costs. The light source project, they had to completely change out panels that they were going to use because the ones they had scoped weren't the ones that they could get at the time. So we live in a weird world, fellas, ma'am. Wish you could guarantee a date, but it's not easy.
Well, this is why it is important that the Area Plan Commission being able to then grant the conditional approval on the adoption of all the necessary agreements. Because that's also a cost issue, is if you require all the agreements in place before you can even be guaranteed of getting approval, it's a ridiculous amount of money that would be wasted, time and money. So, yeah, so they can actually do that, so then once all the various agreements are in place, then it's set up to allow then the issuance of improvement location and building permits.
We don't, I think to answer your question very succinctly, we don't have any statutory requirements, like we have to have the agreement done within 30 days. It's really gonna be, when do they wanna build, when do they wanna start going, and that kind of process.
I guess that was part of my concern, because he'd already talked about he's already signing up landowners in Fayette County. So if they're getting things signed up, they're getting ready to start building, let's say in Rush County, eventually, they're coming across the county line.
Right,
So we have to have everything lined up before they are ready to come across the county line.
right. But
And
the
that's
timeline,
concern.
there's not a statutory timeline. There might be a timeline of convenience for them or feasibility essentially, but there's not any statutory timelines. And I don't think they're gonna start breaking ground anytime in the next 6 months.
I mean, we would not start in Rush County unless we knew that you all were gonna approve as well, because like I said, the substation is in Fayette County, so there's no point in building some solar panels if we can't connect it to the grid, so. Don't feel like we're gonna knock on your door and say, hey, you gotta do this, because we've already built 70% of it. That's not gonna be the case at all, no.
And where at is Rush County with the process for this particular project?
So we have had a meeting with their solar committee and just said, here's the kind of the project we're looking at, what you learned from LightSource, what do you know, how do you want to handle the process differently now? And essentially they said, take a look at LightSource's agreements, have your attorneys redline them, get them back to us, we'll go back and forth, and our attorneys are at the point where they're about ready to send some redlined agreements back to the county to begin those kind of, as John called it, nuancing of specific portions of the agreements. But that's really all that's
Has there been
that's
even an
happened.
application?
There's not been a BZA application filed. We're kind of in the process of building that schedule at the moment, but yeah, we're not 10 miles ahead in the Rush County side by any means at this point, yeah.
Yeah, well, it makes sense because you need to have the engineering include the whole project.
And has been the
It'd be comparable time frame for both.
Yeah, so a vast majority of the past couple months has been site plan after site plan, tweaking this, making sure we're out of right-of-ways and wetlands and all that kind of stuff, making sure that all the pieces fit together. It's just a giant puzzle that you gotta make sure you've got all the proper pieces for. So that's been a bulk of the work, has been just making sure that our engineering's there, and then we're building that kind of timeline in the back of our minds to where once we're ready with a good site plan, then we can initiate the process.
And I share two examples for you about, well, they're already signing people on. They had everyone signed on for LightSource before I even knew. Now we got another project on the northwest portion of the county with a different company, and I don't know if it'll ever happen, but there are people up there who are kind of up in arms about it. You're writing something that I'm not even confident is going to happen. So the moment getting the land signed is the biggest step for these guys. Can't happen if they don't have property. Now they've got it. This is where the hard work begins with you guys and or your committee or whoever that's going to oversee this.
And they are lease options, so it's if all these things happen, then the option can be executed for an actual lease. So unless the county approves it, then that's not going to be executed. So don't feel like we've got already many years of leases in place. It's an option to execute those leases.
And they will sunset at some point.
Yeah.
And go away. So they just got to work within those options.
So, Bill, are you recommending that we utilize the solar committee concept?
Absolutely. Well, could you explain a little bit of what you did to me as the actual, of course, the voting members are the elected officials, and then the various other people that are basically more like staff or non-voting
Sure.
ad hoc members.
And that's where I, as the Economic Development Director for Rush County, I was kind of the go-to guy. If there someone had to track down information or any questions that were asked, that was my job. I went out and did that. But you had, I didn't vote, was on the committee. County attorney was on the committee. Our consultants weren't on the committee, they just advised the committee. So that, that was the case. You can nuance it any way you want. If you want to add your area plan director to the committee, I mean, that's up to you. It needs to be what you feel comfortable doing and how you think the best. Obviously, you do, when I met with Bill, I could tell there's some things that you guys do that we don't do back in Rush County. Well, then, that's fine, and so having the people who can answer the questions at the same table is probably pretty important as you're negotiating. If you will put we don't have a highway superintendent on it, but or the surveyor, but the first meeting we had was with those guys, to make sure that they're engaged, and they're going to be, their role for me is, you guys are the experts on your roads and your ditches and all. You guys need to be the ones who are looking at and advising on these agreements, because you're the ones who have to live with it down the road. So it's up to you who you put on it, really. Who you feel comfortable and how you feel you're going to get the best information so you make the best decision.
And for your information also is, they'll also be speaking regarding this, also the area plan commission. Get them up to speed of what's going on with it and how these various pieces fit together.
I met with Bill and I suddenly got invited to go to 2 different meetings in Fayette County, so I'm not sure who
You don't want to visit me again, do you?
I met the auditor, so I know who to send the bill to. So, it's nice. But now it's important for us, and we all talk about regionalism, but here's the situation: it is our region, and we may fight each other on a Friday night on basketball or football, but at the end of it all, what's important for Fayette County is important for Rush County, and vice versa.
Well, if we're interested in putting a committee together, do you think we ought to ask Bill McDaniel to give us a list of various positions that should be represented on the committee?
I do.
And then try to form something from there?
I think it would be good.
Bill, can you put together a list of suggestions?
If you insist, yes.
Positions or various interests that should be represented on a committee like this?
I think so. At various points in time, not necessarily being the full-time members, but people really need to have some kind of say. So, I mean, some input here and there.
Right.
Because a lot of the critical things are going to actually be included in the documents that are provided, such as the wetlands mapping, floodplains mapping, assessments, distances from those, of course, as we know, endangered species and when not to do things because, of course, the Indiana bat, things like that. So at least need so we'll just need some people that, because a lot of these things are actually going to be spoken to with the documents that we're going to get from the proponents from Hoosier Solar, because their engineers take care of a lot of those things.
Sure.
Well, it sounds like that if you could provide some guidance on the scope of representation that should be on that committee, it sounds like that we'd be interested in going that direction.
Because one thing I will specifically do is at least one of the more active members of the Area Plan Commission, because so at least as much as possible, both of us being actually involved in sitting in the Plan Commission member. I don't think would be probably not a voting member, but at least needs to sit there and as much as anything else acting as the liaison for the actual Area Plan Commission rather than just staff being the liaison.
That makes sense.
All right, okay. Any more questions or comments for these fellows?
I was trying to remember, because I think when Nathan and you were here before, you kind of gave us an idea of, because I think this may be close to where I am, as where the line is there. If I remembered right, do you have that? Like, do you know where that was? The
What
area that they were planning on coming over?
The Glenwood area.
It is
Yeah.
Glenwood,
South-
yeah.
south of
It isn't on
Glenwood.
down, it's right there at the
Yeah.
Glenwood area. Mhm.
And we have been speaking with the folks in Glenwood as well. Like we
Right behind
saw
you.
Jeff at the very exciting Glenwood Bicentennial Festival we went to. So we have been speaking with the folks in and around Glenwood as well. We don't want to by any means sneak in and build this thing in the middle of the night. So we've been trying to make sure everybody is aware of the project. So yeah, near the Glenwood area. Yeah.
And have you been in contact with Mr. Sharp with the newspaper to start getting some fact-based information?
We have not done any sort of communications outreach as far as a newspaper or social media is concerned at the time, but that would be something that we definitely will as we continue down the line.
And I
you know.
think it'd probably be advisable, a Facebook page about it too. That'd be very helpful.
Mhm.
Okay, well, I want to thank all three of you fellas for sharing all this information. I think you provided some good advice.
That is genuinely, my cell number's on that. Call me, Jeff and I know each other well, and he knows if he calls me, I'll take his call too, so vice versa. So, if you think that, reach out, please.
Okay. Well,
Have you
Bill?
met our economic development? Have you met
I've known
him,
Dan for many years. yeah.
Okay, so you know
Yeah.
him, that's good.
Yeah, and I used to be the business manager for Pavey Groceries, so I at least know Everton pretty well, and I'm eager to see the new store get up simply because they, if you've not had a Pavey tenderloin out of Carthage, they're the best. They're pretty good, so they'll be having those up here at the new store. I already checked it out.
Oh, that's good.
When's it gonna open?
Not soon enough for John Pavey, I'll tell you that. Holidays are a good time for them, and so it's moving along. I actually saw on social media last night or this morning early that they're doing a lot of the site work, and it's gotten cleaned up a bunch since Mason and I met with Bill. As a matter of fact, we drove past it. So they can be
I
open.
wonder, because I know it's pretty close to time for me to get back in there.
Yeah, if they can be open by the holidays, John will be a happy fellow. I'll tell you that. But anyway, anything else? Feel free to give me a shout.
Okay, well, thank you fellas very much. Bill, at your convenience,
Okay.
give us,
Oh, at my convenience, that means tomorrow, right?
well, whatever. But give us a roadmap on
Yeah.
the collection of a committee,
Yeah.
solar committee would look like, and we will take it from there.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we've been asked to consider a holiday schedule for 2023. And we have in front of us two versions. One being a schedule that, I don't know if the city has actually adopted this or not. Do you know, Jane?
Yes,
They have
that is
adopted it?
official.
And the version that the county currently goes by, I will mention that the city's 2023 holiday schedule includes an extra day, Juneteenth. And the current holiday schedule here for us does not include that. So, and Jane, would you like to explain why we're addressing this at this time? What are the courts?
Mainly, yes, I've been asked by both courts and then the prosecutor's office, they're trying to do scheduling for next year already. So they would like to have the holiday schedule approved so they know which dates to work around.
Well, I'd say based on the two, I would like to make a motion that we approve version 2, which does include the Juneteenth holiday, June 19th. That would be what I would say. We should be with the city on that, would be a good idea also.
I'll second
Okay, we have a motion by Tracy, second by Dale to approve the holiday schedule version 2 for 2023. Is there any further questions? And I have a question. You do understand that that adds another holiday to our schedule, and that's another day that we don't have employees.
Yes.
Okay.
And it makes us be consistent as
And,
with the other government entities.
and there is a, well, I won't talk money right now. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes, James. I had to remind you of that, you know. Look at him.
Did you pass it because of the holiday, or did you pass it because it
I
happens
said,
to be Jake's
I
birthday?
said that happens to be my birthday, June 19th.
Oh.
So, woohoo!
We're gonna get in trouble if we gave Jake's
Yeah,
birthday
so now my
off.
birthday is officially a holiday.
Okay. What else would the auditor's office like to have today?
Yeah, I'd like to have another day off. November the 17th. No, seriously. I've got a couple of new employees, and we've had Lau, our software provider, come here a couple of times to try to do some training, and they have an end of the year training coming up that basically tells about going through settlement, going through all the like 1099s, W-2s, and all that. And I would like to close my office on November 17th, so all of my staff, including myself, can attend that training in Plainfield.
Where is
So I'm
the
kinda-
training?
Plainfield.
Plainfield? Okay.
It's an all-day training. That's a Thursday, and normally we close to the public at noon on Thursdays anyway. We're usually here all day, but, so we'd really only be from like 8:30 to 12 that we wouldn't be able to help patrons.
Do
But we'll
you-
put a sign out and advertise, between now and then,
Right.
so they would know.
Do you expect or hope to have your 2 empty positions filled by then?
I'm advertising, yeah. If anybody knows anybody, send them my way. So, we've had it on the county website, we've had it on Facebook. I've sent, to all employees asking people to share. So, hard finding people nowadays.
Yeah.
Move to approve closing the auditor's office on the 17th of November.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Dale, second by Tracy to authorize the closure of the auditor's office all day, November 17th for training. Any further question? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes, Jane. Okay. Is there any patron concerns today? Dick Robertson's here. Dick, you got anything for us today?
No, good to see y'all.
Good to see you. Derek Towles here. You have anything, Derek?
Not yet.
Okay. Good seeing you guys.
I got one thing, probably under old business. The applications for the EMA director, do we need to put a closing date on that so we can go through the applications and do interviews and try to, so we got someone lined up by the first of the year?
We certainly can.
So
When do you want to make it? We can, we can say after such and such a date, we're going to just not accept any more applications, or
Well,
whatever you want to say.
what do you think of closing it October 31st, and then that'll give us a couple weeks to look through them, interview, and then come back with a decision either the first or second meeting of December.
No argument here.
We're gonna have to get something.
Yeah, we need to get going on that.
I think that's good. And we were supposed to do our December 6th meeting is when we were going to do the official appointing of department heads, so that falls right in line with that too. So that's a good idea.
I'll move a motion that we close the application for EMA director on the 31st of October.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Dale, second by Tracy, to close put an October 31st deadline for submitting an application for the EMA director position. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes. Okay, anything else?
Nope.
All that leaves is claims and payroll.
Move to approve claims and payroll.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Dale, second by Tracy. Approve claims and payroll. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes. Well, there is, I just noticed on the top of this stack here, have you two seen your emails today?
No, I don't.
Okay, we got this service contract thing
Yes.
in the mail today.
Yes.
I saw it earlier today. You two haven't seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Well, I know that, well, the county auditor had sent this out, service agreement between us and what's that woman's name? Keitha Miller. And
You want me to briefly describe it, Dale?
you were wanting, well, you were wanting it to start November the 1st. Our next meeting is November the 2nd. To be fair to the other two, let them take a look at this.
The document that we need her to do though is due by the 15th. So if you wait until the 2nd, that's kind of not giving us enough time to get her up to speed to do that report. So can we like take a recess and let them review that now?
We can, without,
And then maybe go ahead and hear, I'd like to hear what Jeff was going to share with us about it.
So Jane and I have discussed, we have the pauper contracts, the public defender funding. You receive a significant amount of monies back if you belong in their program. If you follow their rules, the state's rules, then you get reimbursed a significant portion of your funding. I think at least 40%, but in some cases you can get higher than that. Right now, you have the most unique situation I've ever seen in reporting it. You have somebody in the auditor's office that sends that report to the state. The problem with the person in the auditor's office is she doesn't know what an F1 means or an F5 or anything to do with criminal cases, which is very unique for here. And I think it causes her a lot of headache because she's not familiar with the process and she's just trying to kind of halfway do it. So Jane and I discussed the idea that there is an individual in Rush County that does this. She's the full-time secretary for the public. They have a public defender's office, right? So she is a secretary there. She's been there for several years. She does all of their reporting, and that's just a small portion of what she does. So we were kind of discussing the idea of could we have her do that as on a consulting level for us, and not have to have somebody that has no clue what to do, somebody that's already been trained, somebody that's already familiar with the process, be able to do that. And then that way our numbers would be accurate. We would stop getting the kind of nasty grams that we get from the state regarding our numbers and our failing to report things correctly and things like that.
And you did discuss that. You discussed that with us too.
Yeah, we had discussed
We
that before.
discussed
Yeah,
it,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, we had, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a great idea. I'm on the public defender board also.
Yeah,
So we
I
need
think-
that.
I think, talking to Jane, I think it has the potential to maximize our reimbursements. And maybe we don't get full reimbursements, or maybe we have issues. I think for the amount that she's requesting in that service contract, I think it adds a lot of value. It takes it out of the hands of the auditor's office, because quite honestly, they're not familiar with the criminal justice system. They're not a part of that.
And just to throw in there, I don't know how, because this started before I was auditor, but the state has said we are the only auditor's office in the entire state of Indiana that does those forms. It's crazy. Like, we should have nothing to do with that.
Yes.
So I would really like to get
Yes.
that out of my office, especially right now being shorthanded.
Right.
That's just one more burden that I don't need.
I'm sure it's not on anyone's job description.
No.
Either.
The
So,
argument
yes.
could be made too, that you're merely setting a good example for all the other auditors in the state.
These things.
Yeah.
She's just a trendsetter,
There's
Dale.
more, yeah, that's right, a trendsetter, there's more than one way to look at that.
Oh, here.
So, but I did, I had an opportunity to read that earlier today, and it didn't make it on our agenda, that's the reason I overlooked it.
I have reviewed it as well. I don't see the issues with the contract. The contract, one thing that's great about the contract is she's a consultant. And it's 14-day notice, I believe 14-day notice from either side to end the agreement. So, I mean, it could be ended at any time. We don't think that it's working, but there's so many, it's not just punching numbers into an Excel spreadsheet. There's all these trainings that you have to go to be able to know how to do the form the appropriate way and how to balance things and adjust things. And I think having somebody that already does that is kind of a nice scenario for us. And quite frankly, avoids us having that potential of having to have a full-time staff member that
Right.
does public defender stuff.
Well, would it be normal and customary for that work to be done in the courts to begin with?
Well, no, somewhat. The courts begin. They are the information gatherers, and then they send it out. A lot of counties that get the reimbursement have a full-time public defender's office that has staff members inside of it that do this. We avoid that, and I think we have a really good system of avoiding that. But I think this kind of narrows that gap between what we have going on and what we need, where we need to be. She's going to have she's going to know how to respond to emails or letters of concern. She's going to be able to know if there's issues. Because I've often thought, I'm concerned that we report our numbers inaccurately, which is why we always get dinged for having too many cases. This will 100% verify that our numbers are being reported correctly.
And remind me, what is her name?
Keitha Miller.
Keitha Miller.
Everything about her's great, but she shares the same thing as those two do. She's a Rushville guy. So, you know.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
I'm okay.
Mason's
I'm
actually,
half
he's a
County
commuter.
girl.
He's went to school in both places. So that's kind of a special guy right there.
Maplewood Elementary.
Oh, did she really? Oh. Well, do you wanna, I think it's a good idea. So should I make the motion that we approve this contract service with Keisha Miller? Keitha Miller, to do the service for us with the public defender reporting.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Tracy, second by Dale, to approve the service contract agreement between Fayette County and Keitha Miller for all things pertaining to pauper attorney contracts. Any further questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes, Jane. Now, do you need that, will this agreement be between Keitha and us?
Yes,
Okay, you don't need a sign for that?
yes.
All right.
And there's a chance we probably get reimbursed for a good portion of her fees as well.
Well, I'd like to see that.
I'm not saying we will, Dale, so don't hold me to it.
Okay.
But I think there's a very good argument to be made. Certainly it's in pursuit of that goal. So. I didn't know I was unaware that you liked reimbursements.
Yes, I love reimbursements.
Yeah, I'm celebrating the community crossings still over
It's always kind of
That
neat
was
to see
awesome
that.
to see all that red on that sheet. Overpayment.
Okay. Well, that concludes our business for today.
I'll second that.
a motion by Dale, second by Tracy to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
3 ayes. Thank you all very much.